a member on the forum talked about a key method or a key duplication method that is based on what I've called a prison key, and that is to create a temporary key duplicate that with limited resources. And this, well, I thought this was a good tool to adapt, really, because while I could create this thin plastic key, it would give me room in the keyway to insert something like this wire, so I could overlift the two pin stacks that were just with the driver pins and the springs, and while the three pin stacks that were pinned correctly, they would correspond to 3 bittings on the plastic key, and I'd still have room to go down and overlift the 2 that were not pinned correctly, just with the driver pins and the springs. Thankfully, we have a bit of an advantage in that the 2 stacks that are not pinned correctly are stack 1 and 2, so they're right at the front. I don't see any reason why this method wouldn't work with if the other pin stacks were not pinned correctly, without key pins. If you had a key, for example, if you knew which pin stacks were not pinned with key pins, you could measure it out on the key, so you'd know how far down the keyway that you've got to go until you reach that pin stack. You could just put a marker pen mark onto the wire, so you know exactly where you're going to hit the pin stack that needs to be overlifted. I don't see any reason why that won't work. It's a bit fiddly, of course, but it's given the other options to actually repair this padlock, it's a good one. So what I'm going to do now is show you how to make this prison key tool, and give you a demonstration of the manipulation in order to open this lock. So what you're going to need for this method is a lighter or a candle to blacken the key. What I find is that on steel keys it's harder to blacken the key with a lighter. Brass blacken up really nicely, but what I found with steel keys is a candle works very well. It gives, I guess because it's much dirtier flame than a lighter itself. So first of all, we're going to blacken this key. Now, please blacken the key on the side that's going to show the bitting more exactly, because if it's a paracentric keyway, you're going to have one side of the key that's not completely flat on the bitting edge. So you need to choose your edge well, and you might need to do it a few times in order to make a very nice copy. So you just want to blacken that up, and you want to do all the way up to the shoulder of the key, because you also need that in order to have the stop point for the duplicate key. So we can see here we've got some nice black on the key blank, and now we've got to let that cool before it burns my fingers. You let it cool anyway, really, but so we're going to put it on here, let it cool there. And what you're going to need now is some Scotch tape, because you're going to, once this cools, you're going to overlay it on the key and take off that black. And then what you're going to do is place that Scotch tape onto a piece of flexible but hard plastic and cut it out. Now, I experimented a bit with these with plastics. I tried a milk carton, which was very flexible but not strong enough to insert into the keyway and keep the bitting intact. So, you know, that was no good. I tried experimenting with aluminium, so that's that keeps a good bitting positions on the key, but it's very difficult to insert into the keyway without folding and deforming. So what I found in the end, this is like a food takeaway container. It's quite rigid. It's easy to cut, and that will work well. Things like these tops to Pringle containers would also work well, or pet food cans that you reseal the top of the can if you've not used the all of the can. So that sort of stuff will work really well. So that's what we're going to use in this case. Let's get rid of all those. And so we should have a nice cool key. So take a piece of scotch tape and overlay it. You want to put the end of the scotch tape onto the bow of the key, because that's the only part that's sticking really, because you're not sticking to the key itself along the blade, you're only sticking to the carbon that's on it. So you want to have some surety that the thing's not going to move. And I just rub around the edges, and of course rub around the bitting position along the edge of the key. And you want to try and get the depths of the key as well. Like that. Then you're going to take this off. And what you've got is the bitting of the key. Which way should we do this? We'll do it this way. I also found a good idea to this edge of the container gives it a bit more rigidity, so I recommend you do that. Then you want to cut the excess off. Yeah. So what we only need the complete bitting for stack 5, stack 4 and stack 3, because there's no bitting necessary for stack 1 and stack 2, because there's no key pins in those positions, it's just the driver pins and springs. So we're going to leave that so it's a 0 bitting on stack 1 and stack 2. That's going to lift the key pin, the driver pin in those positions up to its fullest extent, and then we're going to manipulate it with a piece of piano wire. Yeah, those two. So I'm just going to briefly stop this vid and cut this out so you can have a good example of the key itself, and then I'll show you the method I used. Okay, so here we have the prison key ready to go. As you can see, I've cut out the 3 bittings on stack 5, 4 and 3 because they're fully pinned, and I've put a 0 bitting on stack 1 and stack 2 to push those driver pins up into the further up into the plug. Of course, they're not on the shear line, but they're further up. So what you need to pay attention to when you're cutting this key is this bottom edge, because it needs to be the right height, of course, and then also the shoulder of the key, because you need the stopping point so the key is going not too far, but not far enough into the lock. And what I also forgot to do, and I can do now, is what I found useful is to just cut the peaks off, because the key is soft plastic. You need to make it travel through the keyway as easy as possible. So you can just cut the peaks off you know, it's not affecting the bitting as in any way. It's just making it travel a lot easier. So that is your key complete. Well, it's not a key, it's a tool, because it's not going to open the lock yet. So we have here our offending padlock. What we're going to do is insert this plastic prison key into the lock and just manipulate it and fold it in a way that is going to bring us joy. And take your time with this bit, because it needs to be right. So here's the key fully inserted right up to the shoulder. Takes a little bit of takes quite some work just to work it in there past the pins and through the paracentric keyway, because the pins are still under spring pressure, so that takes a little bit of work. So it's right up to the stop point, right up to the shoulder that we've cut for the key. So now we've got to use this hook tool to get down the side of the plastic key, to manipulate those two pins, stack 1 and stack 2, to push them right past the shear line. So let's have a go on that. I'm not sure if I use my vice or not. So that is not far enough for stack 2, so that's stack 1. Yeah. So then we're going to, of course we need a little bit of tension to keep the pin set. Let's move that so you can see. So we're going to put tension tool right down the side of there. Now that is now in down, it's pushing stack 2 down, so the driver pin in 2 down, because I'm right on the mark that I created. Make sure we're tight in here. So that is down. Now we just want to manipulate the bitting a bit. On the plastic case, so just give it a little bit of a massage on the bitting for 3, 4 and 5.